Tobias Forge, welcome to London. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
25 plus years ago, you were in an underground death metal band.
Mm-hmm.
And with underground bands, there's very much an ideology and an ethos. You know this. It's DIY. It has to be. But now you're the brains behind Ghost, and you're selling millions of albums, touring the world, playing arenas. Was that always the plan?
If 20-year-old Tobias was here playing in a death metal band, my intentions right there and then was not, as it had been maybe 10 years earlier when I was 10, to become Keith Richards. You know, I wanted to become like a superhero rock star from the 60s.
Right.
If I had had my way when I was 20 and, you know, we were about to make our first record with Repugnant and all that, I would have wanted to be, you know, signed to Earache Records and tour and do all the things that At the Gates was doing or Dissection was doing. Or, you know, I wanted Repugnant to be as successful as it could have been, but it wasn't. So that's when, you know, slowly and steadily the air sort of went out of that one. And then I started experimenting with other bands, and then I finally ended up doing Ghost, which is quite close to both Repugnant and my idea of transforming into someone else when I was a kid.
Right, I see. So the narrative that you have with Ghost and the brilliant storytelling you have in the world you've created, that wasn't just sort of like a flash of inspiration. It was something you were kind of building up to.
Oh, absolutely. I think that when Ghost was becoming popular enough to attract media that wasn't necessarily hard rock and metal based, I think that some journalists from more mainstream or alternative media might have looked at Ghost as something slightly more exotic and weird than simply how I regarded it, because it was like, how satanic image, isn't that strange? Not when you come from death metal underground.
Yeah,
that lingo, that visual language, that image, that way of life is so normal where I come from.
of course, because you had all the sort of Norwegian church burnings, didn't you, and all of that in the really sort of serious underground metal scene.
Yeah. I mean, that obviously that is a deviated, extreme part of the history, which is obviously in the holistic history of extreme metal. It's an unavoidable subject. But yeah, of course, that was part of it, and you know, I am born in 1981, and of course in the early 90s when Norwegian church burnings were happening, of course I was in an extremely influential age.
Yes,
and I was right in the middle of exploring that when that happened. So of course my 12-year-old self was slightly more immaturely enamored with that idea than maybe I am now.
So does performing under, I suppose, stage names and in character enable you, or the spokesperson for Ghost, to do what you do? I kind of see it as almost a superpower.
Absolutely. I do believe that what I'm doing and the way that I approach artistry in a becoming way, maybe contrary to some artists that have a way more grounded image, where there's no faking it. Like what you see is what you get. This is you know, sort of Dave Grohl. Like he's Dave Grohl all the time, and when he goes up on stage, he's Dave Grohl on stage. Like, great. Personally, I would love to do that. That would be fantastic if I was so comfortable in my skin and I was, you know, completely equal to the creator, the creature that I've created. But you know, Day Roll, Pearl Jam, you have these bands, Bruce Springsteen, I guess, so like who are these? You know, you see what you get, and everybody loves that. Whereas there are a lot of artists that don't come off as being, you know, dressed up or playing charades or pretending, but who are actually, in essence, doing just that. And what I've found over the years of being able to literally dress up as someone else and pretending to be someone else, what I've found to be very comfortable with that is that very few people expect me to be him.
Yes.
And that is a luxury. I know a lot of other frontmen who don't have that luxury.
I think if I was in your position, I'd do the same, because I'd quite like the anonymity. You know, I got into radio years ago because I thought I can have a voice, but no one sees my face,
Right.
Which works out quite well, I think, on all fronts. So now radio's become this video medium. I'm almost a bit annoyed about it because I like staying anonymous. So I get that. I think if I was in your position, I'd want a mask as well to go out and perform. Do you feel like when you get into the costume, there's like a switch and it's just all of a sudden?
It does grant me superpowers, and it does add a swagger and a way of doing things that I probably wouldn't have so easily done. You know, you might argue, you know, if you hand me 3 last words and a GT, I can probably behave outrageously then too, or do whatever comes in. But you know, the thing with the way that I perform and as dressed up as someone else is that I don't need to get hammered to do that. It just takes getting costume on and that switch happens, and then all of a sudden I'm able to do things in a different way.
What I find sort of quite curious is for the first, I think, 3 albums, no one knew who you were. It was like mystery. Who is this guy? Who's the singer? And then we find out it's you, which is great, because all of a sudden that question's sort of answered for us. Are you happy that people know it's you behind it now, or did you prefer it before when no one knew it was you?
Generally, 2017 is regarded as when I was outed. Before I was outed and started doing interviews like this, I didn't feel completely anonymous. Post 2017, I don't feel super famous. So that transgression or like crossing that moment and going from outspokenly sort of setting my name to things and from before, it did not mean that all of a sudden everybody started recognizing me. And it did make life easier, because before that we had to put in a lot of extra effort in order for me to not be visible, and it did create a few image keeping upsides, but a lot of practical downsides, and it was just uncomfortable. It made people feel uncomfortable. It made it made for a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of it was just making life hard.
And of course, now we've learned of a new iteration, if you like, the Sabbath gig that's upcoming, Papa v Perpetua, which is the 5th version continuous. Am I close? I'm thinking of my O-level Latin here. Perpetua, perpetual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. This is not brain surgery.
No. Thank you. I mean, do you know much about this guy as of yet? Is there anything? I'm sort of looking at a picture of him, which obviously I can't share.
Right.
Is there anything you can sort of tell us about him? Because I like I like funny Papa.
I actually do not know yet.
Right.
In this case, we've had pretty much the same band for some years, so there's not a whole lot of new things there. But at any point when we do new iterations or new costumes or a new frontman for the last 2 albums, so that takes us back till to 2018, we've had the same frontman, which was a little bit of a luxury, because then we didn't have to deal with the idea of presenting a new person, which we've done through 2 times before, right? 3 times, yeah, where we had to sort of present, here's a new person, please love him.
Yes.
And that, which is always a strange concept that feels foreign every time.
They always love him, though.
So far, yes. But, you know, we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. Will Papa 5 get his live debut, I suppose, on the forthcoming tour? I mean, that is when we will see him.
Yes, because of the Black Sabbath announce, somehow people thought that was going to be a big coming out day.
Yeah.
That day means a lot, but
Yes, of course.
not that.
Well,
That is not part of it.
I'm presuming, is this one of the reasons you've banned mobile phones at the gigs, which I fully endorse, by the way? Is that one of the reasons why, so that you can keep the identity a secret? But also, is it because people with mobile phones are just bloody annoying?
Yeah, no, it's the latter.
Right.
And no, I really want to underline that the ban has nothing to do with, let's say, copyright control.
Right.
It's not that, you know, we want to sit on all the material and we don't want anybody to monetize on it has nothing to do with that.
It's to do with being in the moment.
Yes.
Yep.
The Right Here, Right Now, the film was not only the sort of the essence of messaging in that film was exactly that, but also but us collectively working, making that film. We filmed 2 shows in LA in front of audiences where they had to put their they had to put their phones into pockets. You don't give it away. You have your phone. You don't have to worry about that. If you need to call, you can go out. If you need to take a photo, you can take a photo of yourself out in the lobby. That's fine. But what ended up happening was that we had such an engaged crowd that seemed joyous in a way that I had to go back years in time, you know, since I last saw a fully engaged crowd where everybody's actually watching. They don't have to watch me, but they're watching the band.
Yeah, you and I are of an age where we can remember that, can't we?
Yes.
In the 90s, you go and see a rock show and there'd be no phones. There might be cigarette smoke and lighters, but that's as bad as it got.
That was probably me with the cigarette. But yes, and you know, I don't want to turn this into an ageist thing where I'm going to tell 14-year-olds everything was better back then.
Yeah.
But I swear that
Gigs were better.
the experience of shows and the making of memories, the making of magic was much more powerful.
Yeah.
Some of the best shows I've ever been to, I have maybe not even seen a picture from that because they all live here.
They're all up there, exactly.
They live in my core. That's the memory I have of that. And
I get that.
That is an experience I wish for, obviously, the part of our crowd that are older and more aware of. Maybe this becomes a little bit nostalgic then. Great. But I really believe that the younger portion of our crowd will, as they did in LA, come out saying, like, that was not only a great concert, that was also an overwhelming experience. Because I do believe that you will feel that.
Do the Ghouls get a fresh new look on this tour, or do they stay the same?
No, always new.
New look?
Yes,
Okay.
of course.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to
new
seeing
era,
it all.
New record, new everything.
I was reading that since the last Ghost tour, you've been on a self-imposed informational exile, which sounds good. That sounds quite healthy. What does that involve? exactly.
I think that what you're referring to is a bio that explains that I wrote the record
Correct.
in a medial blackout, which is not true.
Who wrote your bio then?
I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, and I don't know who wrote it. There's a twist to this, and it's that ever since November 6th last year, I have been on a media. First, it was a blackout for like two months, and then I've reverted back to more like an old school. I need to know what's going on in the world, but I'm not gonna sit and read every op-ed of people guessing.
Doom scrolling.
Yeah, that's because that's not bad. That's not good for me.
No.
That's bad for me, especially as someone who's very obsessively interested in politics and law and order and progression of mankind and all that stuff. I felt that I just came to a point where I needed to quickly withdraw and go cold turkey, and I had to come to my senses and just like look myself in the mirror and realize that I'm gonna do what I'm good at, and I'm gonna do good for the people who are relying on me. And that close proximity. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a friend. I'm a provider. But I'm also a boss. And then I have a lot of people who are interested in what I'm doing. I'm blessed with this group of people who wants to follow me. And like, that is my job. I'm not a politician. I can't change the world. Even with my fucking pretty massive megaphone, I can't change the course of things. And I was guilty of doing what I think a lot of people have been doing, is that viewing a certain event as this crossroad where there's option A and option B, and one is complete euphoric utopia, and one is the exact opposite. Whereas that is not true. It's not true. It's constantly fluid. It's constantly amoeba-like moving. Sometimes it's moving backwards and sometimes it's moving forwards. And it's not like it's not a zero-sum game. It simply isn't. But the way I was thinking when I was sort of deeply immersed into that media flow was that this was this cataclysmic event. I'm not saying that things are good, but I'm saying that everyone in the world, especially those of us who feel that we're not on the right path.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that some people is like, yeah, things are fucking great now. Sure. Our job as people, especially if we sort of pat ourselves on the shoulders of being progressive and wanting the world to be a better place, is to understand that these two fucking maniacs who are 70 plus years old, who are currently making our world feel tumultuously apocalyptic, they're dying. They will die. What we're seeing and what we're feeling is their death rattle. And they're trying to trick us into believing as long as they are alive, we are alive. Mm-hmm. And if they die, everybody else dies. And that's not true. It's never been the case with most dictators forever. It's always been like that. The war will also one day be over. Our job is to maintain course, filling our lives with the good things that we know, doing more good things than bad, saying more nice things than evil things. And one day, those people that I was talking about, yeah, things are going great right now. We need to be nice to them and make sure that one day, when things change,
yes,
we need to be friends.
Yes.
That is my job, to make sure that I'm doing everything in my power for that day and going forward to do my little bit. Do more good things than bad.
Well, yeah, and one of those many good things is, of course, the new album, Skeleta, which, if, again, I'm going to refer to my Latin. Is that plural for skeletons?
Yes, I guess so. Yeah, yeah. Skeletons.
Skeletons.
Skeleti.
Skeleti. So, I mean, the last album, you sort of mused on the fall and the rise and fall of empires. So, where are you going with Skeleta?
During the writing of Skeleta, I felt, because the previous record, Impera, was quite heavily reflecting on society and structural external elements. And I felt not very inspired at all to continue writing like an Impera 2. That it wasn't simply enthusing me to write. It wasn't inspiring. And I had a feeling that is not what I want, that's not what I need, and that is not what people that are keen on hearing what I think needs. And that is what I believe. I believe that I've made a record that will be more healing than an Impera 2.
Okay.
I wanted to make a record that was about core human sentiments that will be there forever. Love, hate, hope, regret, acceptance, self-deceit, like simple subjects.
And do you think each song is almost like a bit of a vignette? You know, you can listen to them in isolation, but also, and get meaning from each song, but also you can listen to it in that sort of traditional album form.
I don't know how to elaborate more than a yes. I hope so. And
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah.
From hearing it. Is it all you on the album as well? Because as far as I'm aware, you know, previously, is it you doing all the instrumentation? Is that the same case on this record?
For the last 4 records, I've worked with creative collaborators.
Okay.
And meaning that I, for a long time in my music writing career, I was sort of doing it myself, and I was because I do have a somewhat holistic. When I write a song, I sort of hear the entire song, or at least like I can never write a riff without hearing the drums and what the bass is playing and how it just sort of triggers like a full-on creativity. So it's always been easier for me to just write everything.
It's amazing that you can do that. So every instrument. You're a Renaissance man.
Yes, but I do have limitations. I am of course I am a little bit more of a jack of all trades. I'm an able guitar player. I'm an able bass player. I'm an able keyboardist. I'm an able drummer, and I guess that the one that I've sort of excelled over the last 15 years is probably as a singer, just because I've practiced. Whereas all my other abilities have slowly diminished simply because I'm not practicing as much. On tour, I actually play more drums than I do guitar, and I have to pay for that. Whenever I go into the studio again, it's always like a restart. Like I have to restart playing guitar. The producer of Meliora is also a songwriter, and he was very keen on, like, I want to make this album if you're willing to sort of let me write things with you, instead of me just accepting like whatever you want, and I was like, I want to learn how to do that, because I've never really been able to do that. Whenever there was a collaboration in the past, it was usually more of like an enforced, like someone wrote a riff and it ended up being there. It wasn't really like a 50%, we cannot, there will be no song if we don't do this together. And I said, the only thing I'm really keen on is that each song needs to be like my creation, not on paper, like not name wise, but I mean we need to build each flower needs to come from my seedling. Like it needs to be my idea, because I'm not asking anyone to come in and write a song for me. But Klaus, who produced Meliora, he really opened up that door for me. I can absolutely write with other people. So over the course of the next 4 records, I've met these collaborators who I work really well with, whom really takes out the best of me, and who, I always come in knowing that this will be a great track. I have this idea, that idea, this idea, and then I want that person to like that idea, and then I keep on sort of selling it, and I get feedback back, and then, we put it together, and I know that we both have the intention of making the best possible track. And then on this album, I was sort of the overall producer. We didn't take in like an external person who would come in and have that essentially responsibility. This is the sort of the boring bit, the business part of rock. Being a producer is not only being like a demon producer with an idea, it's also like a responsibility thing, and to a certain degree paperwork that I let my people do. And that was just something that we took out of the equation here. When I write songs with Max, I know that me and Max will make sure that the songs are good enough. When I write songs with Vincent and Salim, I know that we're making our efforts, and it's not like we need a producer coming in and save the project. And then between us, Max is also very multi-instrumentalist. Vincent too. Fredrik Åkesson from Opeth. I have had him coming in for the last 3 records, I think, just because he's such an amazingly good lead guitar player. I like to write the solos like melodically what it's going to be. In the demo period, most of the instruments go through my hand. The drumming and the bass playing and the guitar playing and the keyboards usually have like a treatment that has gone through my hands. But what I've gotten better at over the last records is to, if there is a piano part, not only like an organ, like a simple coloration in the back, but if there's a piano part that requires real playing, I'd ask Salim to come in and play it, because Salim is a fucking God-gifted, funnily enough, in this context. But he's actually like a prodigy. He's so good at playing piano, so let him do it. Fredrik is so much better guitar player than I. He will come in and run circles around my demo, and that makes the whole thing just sound better.
Oh, it does. So you can really hear the sort of attention to detail and sort of the finish on your records, and, especially on the new one. You've got some big rock radio singles on this album as well. I don't know if that's ever intentional with you, but Satanized, Cenotaph, Lacrima, I mean, those are 3 which really stand out as songs that would do well on quote-unquote rock radio. Is that something you're thinking about when you're creating music, or are you just putting what you want out there?
Yes and no.
Okay.
As a professional, of course, I whom grew up on a steady flow of top 40 80s hit radio, as well as death metal noise. I appreciate a good hit as much as anybody else. And of course, I understand that it behooves the project if there is a certain degree of sellable radio material. Over the years, I guess I've been a little bit more keen on super serving, whereas on this record I might have been a little bit more like, there was one dogmatic little rule that I wanted to do with this record, was that it was going to be 10 songs with vocals, as opposed to the previous records that always have like instrumental parts and
a
instrumental
miasma or something like that.
Yeah, we already have a miasma, so we don't really need that.
Love
we already
that song,
have
by
that.
the way.
Yeah, and great. It's so I didn't feel like I'm not going to write an instrumental just for the sake of having an instrumental. But it might be interesting to write a record from start to finish that starts with vocals, ends with vocals, and have vocal songs. But what it did do was it put a little bit of added pressure to let all the songs allow for there to be instrumentalism in songs that would cover, that would sort of weigh up for balancing the lack of instrumental tracks. And that meant that in my head that we if a song is asking to be 5 minutes long, let it be that. If it's not radio format, fine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a risk that I was willing to take.
Well, I think you're at a level now where actually, and I shouldn't say this, I don't think you need radio.
And that's a wrap.
Look, new album Skeletor comes out April 25th. Can't wait for it. I've been privileged to hear it early. I think it's a triumph. Needless to say, I can't wait for the tour.
Looking forward to it.
And good luck with the Sabbath show as well. Tobias, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.